Welcome back to our tutorial series. So today we are going to talk more in depth about text, text formatting, buffering strings, coloring text in PoriScript so that we can expand the options that we have when we are writing our MPC dialogue. Because, it's pretty boring as is, and we haven't talked much about it, so I figured we should cover it in its own video. So I am going to continue editing the scene that we've been working on, the starter selection scene. I've moved Professor Birch a little bit here, and I've created some triggers that start when we first walk into the map based on our little root town state variable. I'm not going to get too into this because it's not related to the text until the end of the video because I want to cover the text first. But basically, this trigger script that we're going to be looking at, well, there's two of them actually. This trigger script is going to walk us forward to Professor Birch, and he's going to start talking to us with some cool text. These triggers, there are two sets on each, are going to stop us from going back until we choose a Pokemon, just so we're stuck in this room until we choose a Pokemon, because, it has to do with the little root town state variable, which, again, we'll talk about in a second, but we're going to get the text, because not everyone's going to care about that. So, we're going to go to our code. This is the script that is going to be called when we're on the trigger. This is the trigger script. The main part we're going to want to look at right now is just the message box that gets pulled up, because we're just going to be talking about the text. The rest of this is just movement, so it doesn't really matter. And that is this text box. So this is the text that is going to show after we walk forward towards Professor Birch. Now, you're going to see a couple things that you're not going to immediately recognize if you haven't already done this sort of thing, and that's the color and the player, and then we briefly talked about the /n and /p and /l, but you might not completely understand what that means. So first we're going to talk about the color, just because it's what a lot of people want to know about, is how to add color into your overworld scripts, and we just use the tags, the color tags, and the name of the color is followed after the word color, and then the shadow, because each text has a main color and then a shadow color. Our normal text is dark gray and light gray with the shadow, but we have a bunch of options that we can look at inside of this carmap.txt file, which is in the root directory of our pokeemerald folder. It's just in the main pokeemerald folder. You don't have to go in any subfolders looking for it. And it has all of the colors here that we can pull from. So you can look at those to see what your options are, but when we use these to change the color of the text, it's going to have a cascading effect on the rest of the text. So to change it back, like let's say we just wanted to change the name to be red, then we would have to change everything else afterward back to be gray. So we do that a couple times. We change it to green and we change it to blue here, just so that we can get a look at what some of the colors look like. Now the next thing you see is this player, and this is basically it's calling a variable that we store into when we create our player's nickname. Now there are other variables that we can call in here that we'll get into when we talk about buffering strings in a second, but this player is in this strings, this carmap.txt, and it shows it here. These are the string placeholders that we have access to. The player, the string var 1, 2, 3, and the rival are the ones that you really should be worried about. The rival is obviously your rival's name, whatever nickname you gave your rival. And you can call that directly in the text, and it'll replace this with your player's name, with the nickname that you gave your player. So that's kind of cool, and you're probably going to want to use it a number of times, obviously, because you want to call your player by name. So we have now talked about the color and the name. Now I want to talk about the /n, /l, and /p. So how they work, /n here, I'm going to walk forward and start our sequence. It's going to display red, light red. You're going to see the two different colors of red for the shadow, and then it's going to go back to the gray that's normal. And it's going to display our first line, and then it's going to new line at the end, and that's what we use the new line. And you want to usually always start with a new line. Never start with an L, but you want to usually start with a new line. It's going to new line it to this end, and then this text is going to display, and then this is going to be /p, so that means we're going to end it with a paragraph. Now, sometimes you're going to want to /L, which we'll get into. /L is going to scroll down, so it's not going to end the paragraph. It's going to scroll to the next line. So this line is now going to be moved up one, and then there'll be a new line underwards. Under it, but /P is going to move both lines up. It's going to start a whole new paragraph. As we see now, today is the day that you'll be here, /N. Now we create a new line, and then we write receiving a Pokemon down on this new line. And we have /P again because I want this to be an end of a paragraph again, because that's the end of my statement, so it looks nice if we do it that way. Now I press A again. Now the first line plays, it's just the /N line. Now choose wisely, /N, we go down to the next option, and now this one ends in a /L, and this is what you're going to see. Instead of creating a new paragraph, it is going to move, it's going to slide up and it's going to move it under. And that is what the /L is. And you're only going to want to use /L after /N. You can use a couple in a row and it'll keep going down. You don't really want to do that because it'll start to look bad if you're just going down, down, down without creating new paragraphs. But that is what /L does. It creates a new line underneath. You're not going to want to use /L after you use /P. You might want to use /P after you use /L if you want to create a new paragraph now. If I wanted to keep adding, I'd use /P here, and then the next line would be a /N line. But that is the basics of how this, formatting system works for PoriScript. Now, PoriScript also has a direct format line. You can use format and then put in the text that you want to format if you want text blah 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 blah, because eventually it's going to get too long. This line up here, this top line that I have, is actually just a single character, even if I put a little dot here, and then I believe just a dot, maybe a dot and a comma is what I had it at to begin with. It's too long. It'll start to overflow out the side of the message box. And that happens at around 40 characters, maybe 41 or something. But, you want to make sure to format your text because otherwise you might have problems. I would generally format it manually, but if you're just doing quick text, the format command in PoriScript works perfectly fine. And you can insert this into a message box. Like if I wanted to put this inside of here, you could do message box format, and then this right here. You see there's no squiggly red lines anymore. Obviously I don't want that there, but you see that is how you can format text. So that's formatting text, that's text colors, and that is adding, the default string variables that we can add into our text. But what we can also do is we can buffer strings into different variables in a couple different ways, and that allows us to add more information into our text strings if we want to, say like, well, in this example here, I have finally I've edited the code, so we only have one give starter script instead of 9 different give mon scripts for each individual Pokemon. We still have our 3 Pokeball scripts, but these Pokeball scripts only call this one main script now instead of 9 different scripts. So we've saved so much space in this file. This file used to be way bigger, and we've also added to it since, and it's still so much smaller because I can buffer into the string var1 now. And I can save some data here so that my text strings can be used with the curly braces, and they can display what I have here. So how this works is we have our Pokeball scripts, Pokeball 1, Pokeball 2, Pokeball 3, and instead of calling calling a script just for Mudkip, we are now going to buffer species name, which is a macro that we can look at in event.inc. And there's more than just buffer species name. There's like buffer number, but like buffer number string, there's a couple of them, and you're going to want to look at them so you can see what your options are. But we are going to buffer, it's going to take a constant of a species, which is just a number, and then it's going to save the name of that species into string var1. And then we're also going to we are going to set our variable to be equal to mudkip, and then this variable here is a new variable that I just created for this tutorial, and I just went into vars.h and I just took over a new starter variable right after starter region, which is the variable we use to determine the region that the Pokemon was in. I just took a new variable to hold the starter Pokemon because on top of needing the string, we also need the number as we go down, because we need to give mon in the number, and we want the number to be variable here. So we can't put species Mudkip here, because what if it's species Trico? What if it's species Bulbasaur? So instead, before we call each one, if you are on Pokeball 1 and you choose and the region is 0, then we're going to buffer Mudkip into the variable and buffer Mudkip's name into this variable, the string var1 that we could see here, string var1, string var2, string var3. So we are going to buffer both the name into the string variable, and we are going to buffer the constant into this starter choice variable that we have created. And we do that for each one of these. We buffer the species name into string var1, and we buffer the constant into starter choice. So then when we go down to our main give starter script that we're using now, we show monpick with the starter choice instead of the specific species name. Then we use a text box, a message box, with the string var1, which is what we just buffered into this string var1. So it's going to say, do you want to choose a Mudkip? Do you want to choose a Trico? Do you want to choose a Chikorita? And then we're going to follow our normal logic. If you don't remember, if you haven't seen my comments yet, this flag right here is one that you have to set after you get a Pokemon for the first time, and I forgot to talk about it in the first 2 videos I made on the subject. But this is a very important flag that we have to check, because otherwise in your start menu, you won't have a Pokemon option. So here, there's no Pokemon list here because I don't have a Pokemon yet, but after I pick up a Pokemon, then I will now have a Pokemon option because of this flag, and you need that flag for that. And I have changed some of the logic here. Before, it was if not flag Pokeball 1, flag Pokeball 2, flag Pokeball 3, and ORing them together. I figured you might as well just, shorten it down to flag sys Pokemon get, because if you get a Pokemon, you don't need to pick up a starter anymore. So that flag just kind of takes care of it. It's not really necessary. You can, use the old version. It obviously worked fine. We still have to set the ball flag, so, that doesn't go away. But anyway, it's just a little more concise just to use this flag here because it's simpler, it's more readable. If you have a Pokemon, then we will, run the starter Pokemon choice scripts. So anyway, let's keep going. It's just the regular script that we had before. We set the flag, we set this variable. This is related to the movement scripts that I have sitting here. It's what pushes you back or stops you from being pushed back, because like I said before, you are trying to leave the room, but it's set to 1 until you pick up a Pokeball. But once you pick up a Pokeball, the little root state gets set to 2, so now you can leave. Now neither one of these are going to trigger because this is 0. This 0 is the one that makes you walk to him. Then he sets it to 1, so now you can't walk out. And then when you pick up a Pokeball, it sets it to 2, so now neither of them are affected. If you are confused about that, watch our trigger events video, because we talk about triggers. It's pretty simple. So we set this little root state to 2 now, so that we can leave. We give mon using starter choice instead of using the exact species ID. Then we again use a message box to say received with the name of the received Pokemon. Then we're removing object var temp 0. Now, I haven't talked about this yet. We also, so because we're using this one script to control all of the things, we need to remove the object, and we need to we also need to set the flag. So we need to do those based on which Pokeball we've clicked on, but this script doesn't know what Pokeball we've clicked on naturally. So in the Pokeball scripts to start with, we're just taking over this temporary variable. There are a lot of temporary variables in the game that we can use, and they just kind of, are dependent. They're kind of map dependent, and you can use them to do, but they erase themselves after you leave, basically. They're not permanent variables. But we can use this temp variable just to store 3, 2, and 1 into this temp variable when we click on each of these Pokeballs, and that those 3, 2, or 1 are the event object ID, 1, 2, 3. So now we can just instead use that variable, and we can just remove object var temp 0 because it's going to remove whichever Pokeball we clicked on. And then we're also going to call set ball flag. I wanted to move the logic of that outside of this because it's a little, big, and I didn't want to copy it twice because we need it for both the give mon the party and mon given the PC. So this is just going to check that flag. If it's equal to 1, then it's going to set flag 1. If it's equal to 2, then it's going to set flag 2. If it's equal to 3, it's going to set flag 3. And it's going to return in each one. So if it is 1, it doesn't have to check twice again. It would happen almost instantaneously, so it's not like it's that much of a slowdown, but I added it anyway. But we keep going, so then we call nickname partymon like we had before, or we call nickname boxmon like we had exactly before, and I also have added this transferred the name of the Pokemon to the PC. And else, hidemon pick, no more room for Pokemon. I also, this one, if you don't choose, I specifically added the string var1. You did not choose the Pokemon name, just so that, there's more of that string action that we can look at as it's going on. So this allowed us to, completely shrink this whole script section, which is pretty nice. So now it looks a lot better than it did before. It doesn't have as much blatantly copy and pasted ugly code everywhere. It's still not amazing, but it's not that bad. So that's, what we're gonna stop on with the text for now. If you don't want to, listen to me go over the rest of the little things that I changed to make this work, you can end the video now. But I'm going to start to talk about the actual script itself, just so that I cover all my bases if people actually want to replicate this. So to start with, we have this script here that is the initial trigger event script. So when little root state is still 0, you haven't picked up a Pokeball, you haven't come in here ever before, there's 2 of them here. They both do the same thing, well, almost the same thing. This one on the right has a 2 on it. It's a different script because if I just walked forward here, I would not be lined up with Professor Birch. So this script moves you 1 to the left, and then it just runs this script, and then this script takes you forward. So those are actually technically different. I should not say they're the same. But then the stop leaving script, stop leaving, are these 2 on top, and again, it's just a different value for little root that gets changed when you, during the moving process as you're doing the intro. So we are going to lock, we are going to apply movement, meet Birch, which just walks us up 4 times. Then we are going to wait for the movement. 0 is just the last movement to be done, so wait movement 0, waits for this movement. Then we have our message box that we went over here, our fancy message box. We wait message, we close message. I do this because for some reason, not entirely sure, the message box stays up until Professor Birch goes back into this corner if I don't. But it's not that big of a deal. We can just close the box manually. Then we apply the professor's movement. So this professor is just going to walk up, walk right twice, walk up, and face down. So walk up, walk twice, walk up, and then turn back down so he's facing downward. Now we wait for that movement, and then we set the variable. So now the script here, the event triggers, will trigger so we can't leave, and then we release. Now again, like I said, the starter choose sequence 2, it just applies this extra movement, meet Birch 2, which just walks you left 1 time. So it just moves you 1 time over here, and then from there, it then goes to this first one. So it goes to here, and it doesn't come back here because there's no reason to. So it just goes to this script and then does that script exactly like it is there. So we didn't have to copy a bunch of stuff twice. So that is the basic, script that we have here to control that motion. Here we also have the stop leaving script for the not being able to exit, which is very similar to, our trigger event script that we looked at in our trigger event video. You just lock, message box, you need to choose a Pokemon, apply movement, do not leave, which is just walk up. So if you're walking down, or even if you're walking to the side, it just pushes you up one, and that makes it trigger again if you try to walk onto it again. So that's enough. That's all we need. Wait movement, release all, and that's all that's there for that. So also on top of that, so because I changed that little root, the little root state variable in my little root town, a lot of the time you want to use different variables for each map, even if they're related, but I wanted to use that variable, so we have to change what we had related to it in our other file, in our little root town, if we want our rival to still appear in the same way. So this part here, the set var little root state 0 still stays the same. We can change this here to the sys get Pokemon flag if we want to, but here is what we're going to change. We're going to, if little root state is equal to 2, then we're going to clear the flag for the rival starter battle. And that will, so basically when our Pokeball, when we, where is it? Here. So when we grab our Pokemon in our give starter command, it sets the state to 2, so then when we leave, and we're able to leave because it's no longer 1, as soon as we walk out the door, this is called on startup because it's a map script again for this map. It's called on startup, and it sets the flag for May equal to, it clears the flag so that May can appear, but only if the little root state is 2, which again we just set the 2 in when we picked up the Pokeball. So our flag is set to 2, so now this code runs, it makes May appear, and since May can appear, May will try to battle you here with this battle script, and this rival battle over will run after the battle is over. And we also have to make a change here. We have to change it to 3 because otherwise May will start to spawn in again, but we don't want her to spawn in again. We only want her to spawn in before we've beaten her. But after we've beaten her, we don't want her to spawn in again because, we make her walk off the screen and disappear. We don't want her to spawn back the next time we come into the map. So now we have this 3 here. So that is the only change that we are going to make here. So that, I think, is all we're going to talk about for this video. We don't need to do anything to these triggers here that we added in the trigger video, because you're not going to be able to get out of Professor Oak's lab until this is greater than 0, and you can only get out when you have a Pokemon. So that's all working fine how we intended it to. So I think the only thing that we can do is we can go and we can look at our Pokemon. So now we see that it says Trico, right? That's what we want it to do. But it also says Mudkip. And, this is the new, it says Torchic. We can change to Johto. It's Totodile. It says you did not choose Totodile. Chikorita. We received Chikorita. Give Chikorita a nickname. And, now we have our Pokemon. We have our Chikorita, level 50, holding a Master Ball. And that had, despite getting rid of all 9 of our functions that had the specific names in them, it was still able to pull all of the names of the Pokemon out because of our buffering of the names. So that is, basic text. Went on a little longer than it probably should have, but I wanted to be, concise. Well, concise is the word. I wanted to be, I wanted to cover everything. So hopefully I did. If you have any questions about, related to text, make sure to leave a comment here or in the Discord. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next one.